Welcome, everyone. This is the Ends Justify the Memes, the show where the lowest of the low, that is, the most wretched of wretched and deplorable to end all deplorables, two white, heterosexual Christian males from the American South talk about culture, philosophy, history, health, fitness, and what it means to be a man in the 21st century. I'll be your host, Bill, and this is my producer and co host, Tank. So, crack open a beer and lend us your ear because the ends always justify the memes. All right, all right, all right. All right. Before I start asking you stuff, Tank, I want to make sure that I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
We're good.
Okay.
Gotta wait for that delay, folks. Gotta wait
Yeah.
for that delay because I'm watching the live stream while Tank does everything else.
Yeah, it's
So,
showing up on my end like it's reading, so we should be good.
yeah. Seems fine to me right now. But what are you drinking tonight? What's going on?
I'm drinking wine again, even though on the last stream I stained my teeth and lips purple. I walked downstairs when we got done. My wife was like, "What were you doing up there?" I was like stumbling down the steps drunk. I'm like, "Oh, I need some beef jerky." She was like, "I think maybe you should only take one bottle of wine with you if you're gonna drink on the stream."
Wine's an interesting thing for me, in that sometimes it hits me hard quick, and
Yeah.
sometimes it hits me way too late. And speaking of which, I'm drinking High Life, so we'll see how that goes. Because this is like I don't know, tasty nectar of the gods. It's like water; it goes down like nothing. So sometimes it'll catch up to me before I know it. And sometimes it's like I can drink like 5 or 6 of these guys and be like, yeah, I'm perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Sometimes it hits my digestive system weird. The high life, but
Oh, me too. That's why I've been avoiding it. It gives me heartburn, all that. PBR is much better, folks. And I went hams the other week, which I might do again, but maybe in the future because I think I'm gonna not drink the next few streams. We'll see. Maybe I'll drink on the stream before Christmas. But with all that, we got a lot of topics to get to tonight, folks. Thank you all for joining us. If you are joining us, we do have a live stream now on YouTube, and we have our entropy working. If you guys want to go over there and donate or anything like that, obviously we're on D Live, and appreciate any lemons and diamonds and ice creams and whatever else D Live crypto is that I have no idea, and whatever else. But we're going to be here regardless if you give us money. So
it's a
with
labor of
that,
love.
yeah. But we do appreciate it if anyone wants to help the cause. But with that, let's get into the Meme Cast news.
Looks like we have a Thanksgiving meme up front here.
Yeah, this is Uncle Joe's Thanksgiving. I don't know why Jack is like all like short haired on the side and no beard, but that's apparently Jack in the background there. And funny that Winnie the Pooh's the only one that's wearing a mask. Of course, if anyone doesn't know, in China right now, their GDP is going up, their economy's open, people are going to nightclubs, there's no mask wearing and whatever else. Because I think they understand what's actually going on with this thing, and it's not that big of a deal unless you get the pneumonia and the flu on top of it, or you have other things like diabetes, heart disease, gross obesity, all that kind of stuff.
Well, I have a friend that lives in China, and well, she's Chinese, but back in like May, she lives in Nanjing, and she was like, "We're like it's pretty much gone here." So yeah, they've been good to go for a while, it seems.
Well, unfortunately, I did have a cousin, a second cousin pass away last weekend with the coof, but not necessarily because of the coof, because they went to
Mm,
the hospital with viral or some sort of pneumonia. Um, was in the hospital for a month. During the time he was in the hospital, ended up having the coof. Of course, it's a COVID death because of that, which is silly. Um, I have an uncle who I haven't heard any updates on. These are family members I don't keep really good tabs with, but I'm kind of a, like I said, black sheep, lone wolf kind of guy. Um, but yeah, like I'm not going to sit here and deny that this thing is. I'm not going to sit here and say it's not a thing. What I think is it's not a thing that's really affects people all by itself, and we know that based on CDC data.
right.
CDC said that. What were there, like 9,000 cases of
Hmm.
people that only had COVID that were deaths? So I think what we're seeing right now is just authoritarianism, and China doesn't care because China's glad to make its economic power grow while the rest of the world suffers.
Hmm.
Uh,
Oh yeah, for sure. There was an article. I forget who wrote it. It's some dissident right group, but they basically said that globalism is Chinese nationalism. They kind of showed drew all the points between how all of our you know open society globalist you know ideals that are happening over here actually they all work to benefit China. So it's probably not a coincidence that that's the case.
oh yeah, well I had a meme about that, but didn't get in the show tonight. But that's how things go sometimes. In any case, the next one here we have Mom, why is Bruce Jenner staring at our family right now? And that is Gretchen Whitmer, um, as she's fondly known as. And yeah, man. Th- This is such a sad time for America, in my opinion. I mean, the authoritarianism in America hasn't been strong for a long time, at least since the Civil War. And we've had our ups and downs, and of course, of the FDR era, and then later on, we had, of course, the Bush administration with the Patriot Act, and of course, Obama wasn't any better. And it's just very, very sad that our nation is where it's at right now, in my opinion. But let's keep moving, man. Speaking of which, sometimes when I see a meme, I think it's good, and I'm like, did we use this before? But whatever. Says when you've lost your business, your income, and your life's work, but it's okay. Since your government saved your life from the virus with a survival rate of 99.99996666666%.
Yeah, everyone's talking about this vaccine like, oh, it's got a 95.7% effective or whatever it is. And I'm like, yeah, but I've got like a 99.999% chance of surviving it anyway. Even if I mean, I think I'm immune to it. I haven't washed my hands in 3 months, so and I still haven't got it, so I don't
And you
know.
don't use toilet paper,
Yeah, and I don't use
so
toilet paper. Yeah, so I'm pretty much immune to this thing. I'm just built different, I guess.
I uh I sent you a link, I text you the show Utopia, the English
Mm.
version, because the Netflix version has been gaining some traction from what I've seen the reviews and just little clips on YouTube or whatever. It's trash, but the UK version is awesome. It's really good, actually. Not a perfect show, but visually very stunning, very brutal violence, but also shows you some realities of what some of these globalist people think. And
Mm.
I highly suggest anyone go check it out. I sent Tank a YouTube link of the show. You can find the first and second season over there. Although I'm sure that's a copyright issue, so whatever. I'm not telling you where that link is. Go find it yourselves, folks. You gotta go be an internet sleuth on your own. So here we have, I'm the sole wage earner in my family. That makes me an essential worker. Of course, all work is essential unless you think that the government must provide for your safety, must provide for your I shouldn't say safety, but your security, as in your financial security, and must take care of you like mommy and daddy does, which is unfortunately how I feel that most of society feels anymore.
Yeah, that's this whole essential worker thing. That's kind of what I've when it first came out. I was like, well, essential to who? Like everyone essentially has to eat. So what are you gonna do? I'm blessed. I guess I'm lucky that I ended up in a job. I had a paycheck this whole time. It hasn't been an issue for me, but I really feel for the people that have to deal with this.
Yeah. Tank, you jumped memes on me, but that's all
Did
right.
I?
Yeah. There's two more before that lined up, and no big deal. We'll just keep rolling. So this is normal people up top here, folks, and underneath, conspiracy theorists. It's insanity. So the one I had next was the shutdown sucks for everyone in the service industry.
What's the next one? Huh? I wonder what happened to it.
Oh, this is you and your newfangled system.
Oh, here we go.
working.
Watch this.
No, not that
Oh,
one.
oh.
But cool.
Oh,
Let's just roll with it, dude.
I see.
Just roll with it. Man, you're all over the place.
The file is opening. Want to open up as a. Anyway, the file's corrupted. That's why I did open. Here we are.
Okay. It says liberals be like, we need a new plague. LOL. The world is overpopulated. I hate humans. And then, what's wrong with you? Do you want people to die? You selfish a-hole. And yeah, that's like, I don't get it.
Right. Yeah.
Because this is exactly what they say. In fact, when they talk about this stuff, I'm always like, okay, here's the gun. You first. Earth is overpopulated. Well, no, not me. I'm okay. Just the rest of you people.
That's because at this point, these beliefs that a lot of these people have are not really beliefs. They're just gang signs. They just they just throw them up to show who their tribe is, to represent their set.
No doubt about that, man. So I'm gonna have to go off your lead. What do you got next? Because
I've got the far right strategy to suppress voters.
Oh man, we done missed a bunch of memes.
Huh.
It's cool. So far right strategy to suppress voters: require citizenship, require identification, must only vote once, must be alive. And sorry, folks. If you're not a citizen, you don't get to vote. If you can't prove who you are, you don't get to vote. If you want to vote more than once, then your vote shouldn't count. And yeah, you got to be alive. I mean, that seems reasonable, I think.
I think the same way, but some people seem to argue different.
Yeah, because they're not arguing in good faith. They're arguing about power. So what do you got next? Because I can't even bring it up. Yeah, you skipped another one.
Yeah, I
Good
got.
Lord.
I'm terrible at this. I got Senator Booker introduces a bill to transform land to black farmers.
Yes,
a la Zimbabwe.
This is legit, folks. This is absolutely
Is
legit.
it really? Oh my god! I thought this was like one of those Zimbabwe memes that I see come up. Oh my god.
No, as far as I know, this is absolutely legit, and basically, this is the way of South Africa. So yeah, that's gonna be a good time.
Ooh.
Yeah. Mm. You all don't know what you're getting in for. You really. I can't believe the just shallow. I mean, I know it. I know it. But the shallowness of people. I mean, you're just skipping memes left and right.
Man, one of those that, and you remember when before the stream I was like, man, all this technology is working out great today, and then all of our memes get skipped.
That is what he said.
I jinxed it.
100% what he said. I don't know. I do the research and like find memes and whatever. Tank just has to get it on screen, and get us streaming.
Yeah, I have one job and it's pretty terrible at it.
I mean, really, he has to show up and do that. I don't even need him to talk half the time because I have plenty to say. This is how it goes, guys. Like, be careful who you hire, but also realize when you can't afford to hire anybody, you get what you get.
I'm an essential podcaster.
Essential, right? So, Not sure if she's anti-gun or pro-gun violence. Real men use fists, which also to me might indicate something else.
Ooh.
Ooh, I actually had a meme about that, which I'll save for another time. You probably wouldn't have it brought up anyways if I had it on this stream. So I should have went with the 30 that I narrowed down to the 2 dozen. I should have
Yeah.
just went with it.
Yeah,
And you were gonna say
just send me 50 memes and then maybe we'll get 15 out of it.
right. So this is the Czech Republic passes resolution supporting gun ownership and firearms, and then the UK you had challenge 25, no idea, no sale for a
For
cheese grater. This is how far they.
Woo. Yeah.
All right, please tell me you have specially designed for men. Please tell me.
I
Oh
don't
my.
I don't
Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get through these memes, and then I'm gonna have to screen share or something because there's just no way, man. There's just no way. You just screwing the whole show up.
I can fix it right now. It'll just take a little bit of doing.
All right, well, see if you can work on that.
Yeah.
I'll read this, but basically it says the way to a man's heart is through his stomach, unless he's vegan, and then it's through his vagina. Which, oddly enough, I turned on the TV briefly to pull up YouTube as I was sipping some coffee earlier, and it was on Comedy Central and it was playing South Park, and it was the end of the episode where I guess Stan or Kyle or one of them goes vegan, and they kept talking about how he became a vagina. Vaginas were growing all over him because he was a vegan. If you don't eat meat, that's how you, it's what you become. By the way, folks, I don't care what you eat. Um,
I do eat meat.
just don't push it on me. That's all I'm saying. Do not push it on me.
Oh,
And don't force me. Don't somehow make it so that I can't eat meat. You know. So you got these other memes? Because there was some man.
oh, give
I
me.
got a Mike. I got a Michael Malice tweet here.
Yeah, that's the one I
I
really
got
want. Okay, hold on, let me see. Let's see what I can do here.
do the old Discord path if you need, which I know is not as quick, but
But I might can make it work. Okay.
we got the missing milk thing. We got the not a doctors. We got the chick. We got
Okay.
Biden and his dog. I mean, we also have the mayor of wherever that town was with the Mayfair shooting and his ridiculous statements,
Okay.
especially designed for men who are afraid of guns. Man, Tank, you just.
My bad.
All right, folks, that's it. I'm retired. We're just
Look at
giving up the
that.
stream and starting over.
Look at
Yeah,
that.
you got it.
I've got who is this? Who is this quote? This shutdown sucks for everyone in the service industry, but it especially sucks for men because we're losing $1 for every 79 cents a woman are losing.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. It's hurting men more than it's hurting women right now. All right, you can read these
Yeah.
next
Here we
since you
go.
got them.
I got the Michael Malice tweet here. Gavin Newsom here saying, "Today is Small Business Saturday. California is home to over 4 million small businesses. This holiday season, shop safe and shop local to help support our economy and the over 7 million workers that help keep our small business going." Michael Malice tells him he should go to Gitmo.
How in the world are you going to tweet something from Newsom staff? Are you going to tweet something like that when you have the entire economy shut down, essentially, and then you have an exemption for all of it? Because the pretenders, the people that play, you know, that get to go basically have a leisurely life, that work 3 to 6 months out of the year and make millions of dollars. And by the way, half the stuff that they do while they're working that 3 to 6 months out of the year is like really cool stuff, like shoot guns and go train martial arts. You know, like what the hell?
Do you remember which other one we missed? Was it the girl?
Um, yeah, someone might. I mean, that one I could care less about, honestly.
Oh, the
We
Biden
can get
dog.
in next.
The Biden dog. We gotta look at that one.
Yeah. I want you to bring up the mayor from the Mayfair thing for sure, though, because I
Oh yeah.
wanted to cover that last week, and we're 2 weeks out of the news cycle on that, and people need to know the people who are running your government are idiots.
So it turns out Biden's dog that is I guess he's MAGA now all of a sudden.
We did break Biden's foot, but this was a story, an actual story. A pet psychic talked to Biden's dogs, and they said he was going to be the best president ever.
What the fuck?
You can Google this, folks. I'm not joking. I know that this is the fake real news, but this happened.
Okay, here's the Macy's. We got it. So this is Wauwatosa Mayor Dennis McBride. Guns have no place in shopping malls or other places in which crowds of people gather. Mayfair has a strict no gun policy. If a shooter had complied with that policy, no one would have been hurt. Well, no shit.
This is literally in his official statement. Again, you can Google it. I don't know if it's been changed. I think I archived it. So if you can't find the original, it'll probably be on archive today. But it is in his official statement. If the shooter followed the no gun policy, what are you talking about? Like, criminals don't care. They went there to shoot somebody. All right, I see you have the specially designed for men who are afraid of guns. So you see how these flow in each other, Tank? How I try to get them. The next one after that was the meat and the vaginas. You know?
Yeah, well, I just found out that you sent them to me in different formats, so my bad, I guess.
You asked. They're JPEGs. And I told you that they would be in order on the Discord. We're going to have a reckoning after the stream.
Really? Because this one is a Microsoft Edge HTML document, so explain that.
Dude, I download them. They're all JPEGs. They're on my phone, and then I emailed you from my phone. So
yeah, Proton Mail might have messed them up. I'm sure that's something that happens. Okay, anyway. Yes, they got out of order. My bad. So here we are.
And this, friends, is the fun of the show. All right. So the next one, you're going to have to tell me what you got.
We're on the specially designed for men who are afraid of guns.
No, I already read that. I saw that.
Okay,
Yes,
so we did the steak, and now, so now we're going to go back here, and I'll pull it up. Well, that I was.
Oh my lord.
Oh no. Well,
dude, that might need to be the end of the memecast news for the week. Oh wait, I can see them all.
Watch this. I'll just do it this way. I got it. I got you, dog.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right, I got it. Christmas preparations 2019. And there we have Christmas preparations 2020. Well, no, we don't.
Yeah, I ain't got nothing on the screen. Dude, it's just time to end it. It's time to end. The memes are over. I will regroup next week. I'm sorry, folks. Look, we lost a viewer. We had 3 viewers, and we just lost a viewer.
My bad.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the... Oh, no, we gained a viewer back. Wait a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the finest production you will ever see.
Well, you know...
No, I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea.
Stuff happens.
Come on, man.
Stuff happens. You know, be grateful for the memes that you have, and don't sweat the memes you don't have. That's what my dad tells me.
Yeah. Oh. Hey, yeah. that was 20 minutes of tedium of life. So that's good for the soul to get a little suffering going on. Oh boy. Speaking of 20 minutes, I'm already on number 2 because that's
Wait,
how high life goes.
oh, no, well, that was stressful. It was.
Dude, it's like it doesn't do anything
Yeah. A lot of those,
until it
a lot of
does.
those, yeah,
Until
yeah,
it
yeah,
does. Then
exactly.
it does
It's like
something.
like
Yeah.
it builds interest in your liver. You don't really notice it at the time.
You're like 8 deep and all of a sudden you're like,
Whoa, hey now.
"Whoa!" Anyways, all right, so what are we talking about today, Tag? Because normally I kind of sort of introduce the topics. We discuss it right before the show. We do this pretty impromptu, guys. So Tank, for the first time in like a month, had some idea what we can talk about. It's just
Uh,
throw Tank under the bus day is what this is.
that's
So
fine.
yeah.
Yeah, I deserve it. So there's kind of this debate going on I've seen on Twitter, about Trumpism without Trump. So let me, so what we're looking at here is we don't know if Trump's gonna be able to pull this thing off or not. So instead of getting blackpilled about it and being like, whatever, there seems to be this debate on what is Trumpism without Trump, because there's still this like momentum. A lot of people think, but the problem is you got people like this guy in Georgia who seems to be really wishy-washy about calling the election bullshit, and it's making a lot of people question his loyalties, which I think is, you should question every single Republican's loyalties at any point in time, my opinion. So the issue is, do you stick with the Republican Party? Do you still want to believe that they're actually a serious opposition to Democrats, or are they really just kind of all on the same team and Trump was, a complete outsider, and there's no Trumpism without Trump, or without another outsider, or however you want to slice that cheese. Going forward from here, like, they're worried about losing these Senate seats, and a lot of people that voted for Trump are saying, well, let them lose them. They deserve to lose them for the way they're acting. If you don't absolutely call bullshit on this election, then you deserve to lose. Is kind of the opinion that's floating around. I kind of agree. I can definitely see the merit in that. It is a little scary to think that you're just going to hand everything over to the Democrats. But then at the same time, if you've got a bunch of Republicans that will kowtow to them anyway, then what's the difference? You might as well be handed over to the Democrats. So it's kind of a weird debate. You don't want to fall into that trap of always voting for the lesser two evils. At some point, you got to draw a line in the sand. And this seems like go ahead.
Good.
Well, I was just going to say that this seems like as good a time as any to do so.
I'm always kind of generally against that idea of the lesser two evils. We kind of talked about that. That's why I started supporting Donald Trump, because I don't think he was the lesser of two evils. I think he was something different. Do I think he was perfect? No. Do I think Donald Trump was going to carry on us into the future? No. Do I think that the criticisms of Trump not getting enough done are legitimate? No, I don't, actually, because he was hindered at every single corner. And honestly, I honestly believe that he was trying to work with the system in the swamp, and there were bad people of bad faith telling him to do this or that. And so when he took in, say, um, what's his name? The former UN ambassador, the
Bolton?
warmonger. I can't
Bolton?
remember his name.
John Bolton?
Bolton. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah. When he took in Bolton, that was what, 2 years into his administration, a year and a
Mm-hmm.
half, something like that.
Yeah.
He was probably being told, "Oh no, he'll handle these people. He'll do this. He'll be the guy. You need him. I know he's a warmonger, but we can work with him." Turned out, no, we can't. They took Flynn out right away. They didn't like General Flynn, and Trump probably, at least according to some sources that probably know better, specifically Robert Barnes, probably regrets that. It's also probably why he pardoned him, although Flynn got a very raw deal. Um, but to me, it's never been about Trumpism. It's been about jacking up the establishment. Because I used to say when I was in my 20s or early 30s, I might have called them the Republicrats. Of course, there's the rhinos and the dinos, Republican in name only, Democrat in name only, or the neolibs and the neocons. That's all the same thing. It is the Washington establishment. Our liberty and our republic was sold out, guys, 100 years ago. This is a theme I talk about all the time. I just made a little video about this over on All Minus One. That's my standalone channel, just me. Yes, that's number one. Um, yeah, All Minus One on YouTube, guys, is I put up content every week. A lot of it's longer form, but I do have short form segments. And honestly, I've been putting out a lot of content this past month because there's just so much going on with this election. I'm kind of sitting back and waiting. And I don't really do news content so much as just commentary and historical looks and presenting ideas of things like classical liberalism, where we came from, why these ideas are good ideas, and what it is to be or to have a strong society and strong individuals. And we don't have that. The coronavirus is the biggest indicator that we have a bunch of vaginas in our nation. And I'm not insulting women, but I'm just saying, like, think about this, folks. Like, at what time in history did people act this way over something so survivable that people at their life expectancy are dying with, not necessarily because of, but with, and that's important. There was a Johns Hopkins study paper just done that then was retracted. I did a video covering that briefly, as well as the numbers and everything else just the other day. This stuff is insanity. We're looking at people who would probably have died anyways or had severe conditions. This idea I keep hearing going around that the long-term lasting health effects of the coof is a thing. It's not a thing. Look at the studies, look at the papers on that. These people already had poor health. I've mentioned this before. It's like studies that they've done on vitamins, and they go, well, here, we're going to take an 80-year-old with heart disease and we're going to give them vitamins, and they don't get any better. Therefore, vitamins don't do anything. That's not what that study says, folks. It doesn't say that vitamins don't do anything. It says that at that point, with that much damage to your body at that age, your body's not going to get better because of vitamins. It doesn't mean across the board for the majority of human beings, for children, for young adults, for middle-aged adults like myself. I'm technically middle-aged, right? That um that it's not going to help to some degree. You need vitamins. And of course, I'm getting into the whole science stuff, Bruce Ames and triage theory and Rhonda Patrick and all that kind of stuff. But that's a whole side note. But the reality is our government has wanted power, like all governments have wanted power, and has increased its thirst for power and control. And we have this kind of corporate oligarchy, fascistic type system. And I don't mean fascism as in Nazis and racial components. It's not what I'm talking about. If you understand what fascism is, it's that the state is the spiritual body, the spiritual head, and the state is the leadership of everything that you do, and they control the economy through central planning. And it's not quite socialism because it's not the means of production, but in the end, the state actually does rule the means of production through regulation. And they do this largely with industries like agriculture and whatever else. Is Donald Trump against all that? I don't know. But he's not part of these swamp creatures that are trying to bring about a world global government, which I believe is 100% a reality. Um, so yeah, the deep state's real. Um, the nature of our government is not a republic anymore. Why do you think they say, oh, it's a democracy all the time? You're killing our democracy. And when they say that, actually, Now the Stooges, the Stooges are another thing. The people out in the streets or the idiots who are on the news or whatever who are saying those things, they're either saying that because they're being disingenuous or they're dumb. But the reality is when you have people like Barack Obama saying that, what he's saying is you're killing our oligarchy. You're killing our power. You're a threat and a danger to that. And I know that makes me an extreme right winger, but actually, I think that just makes me a constitutionalist. Uh, I don't know what's so wrong about wanting to leave most everybody alone and making you responsible for yourself and bringing the most economic prosperity that the world has ever seen. If you study history and you understand when this country was a classically liberal run country, we ran ourselves like Hong Kong once did before the Chinese government, or Singapore, or many other largely market nations like Switzerland, or even Sweden, even though they have a lot of social programs. By the way, most of their social programs are privatized, but that's the government like contracts them. Um, but if we saw that in our country, you wouldn't have all these lefties talking about, oh, we need socialism, we need this, we need more power to the state, we need more power to the government. And then on the other extreme, you have these people saying we need more power to the corporations, which, by the way, folks, there's no monopoly within corporations unless the government backs it up. The ultimate monopoly is violence and power. So,
Well, kind of on that point, you really see there's been a serious change in the wind. I don't know if you caught when Michael Malice interviewed Glenn Greenwald recently, but
I queued it up. I didn't get to watch it yet.
So
I actually forgot about it.
yeah, one of the points that Michael Malice brought up was the left used to be incredibly well. They've always been critical of corporations, so to speak, and now they're kind of friendly with corporations. You got people like Bezos and stuff. But he was like, the left used to criticize the corporate media, and they just don't anymore. It's a really weird thing. It's kind of it's I think the easy explanation doesn't get to the heart of it, and I don't really know what the heart of it is. The easy explanation, of course, is that just everybody on that side of the aisle are crazy and just going along with the flow, and there's probably some of that. I mean, it is what it is, but there's got to be more to it. That you don't go from 10 or 15 years to that much of a switch without some serious kind of what's the term they use, manufacturing consent kind of stuff. So I don't know, like I've got whiplash really from from seeing like how quick, because I remember George W. Bush and everyone, like it was like leakers and whistleblowers and stuff was like the guys, the guerrilla. It's all the guys on the ground that are going to bring us the real news, that give us the real information. They're going to, blow the lid off this corporate shenanigans. And then we got, all these guys that are kissing Zuckerberg's ass now. So, like what? How did this happen? And
well, there's something.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, like Tim Pool said something about that with Voldemort. How like there's an age difference. Tim was Occupy Wall Street, which was in Obama's term, and a lot of the people coming up were like 10 years old at that time. So something happened. Something happened. Yeah.
Right. But with him though, he's not a genuine person. Obviously, I actually recently rewatched. Or watching the rest of his take with Destiny on the Kyle Rittenhouse thing, which I was watching Adam Friended and PSA Sitch's show where they critique these videos, but it came up because I watched his debate with Sargon, and right away he's being a complete doucher. It's why I won't bring up his name. It's just a matter of like, why am I going to give this guy any credence or credit? He does nothing but ad hominems and all kinds of logical fallacies. One of his first arguments against Sargon was an appeal to authority. He's like, everyone knows that an appeal to authority is only a fallacy if the person's not an authority. And it's like, no, That's not it. That's actually another fallacy. When someone's not, um, it's called an appeal to fallacious authority.
Yeah.
But an appeal to authority is only a valid argument if both parties within the argument decide that that authority has settled the issue. Because the line of the way the Socratic method and debate is supposed to come about is that you're questioning and answering things within each other. And then if there's a logical fallacy and you say, hey, you made a mistake in the way you thought there because you're saying this is this because of this. And you go, well, this authority said this. And it's like, okay, but you're not arguing against my argument. You're just saying, well, this guy said so. This guy said so. Therefore, it's true. That's not an argument. That's an appeal to authority. It's a fallacy. And so that's one of his first things he said. He also said language is subjective, which I wholeheartedly deny, although Sargon conceded on that a point. Language isn't subjective, folks. That's just a bunch of Marxist, postmodernist nonsense. Language has meaning. It does change, but that's not the same thing as being subjective. Organic change in language doesn't mean language isn't subjective, or sorry, isn't objective. Language is absolutely objective. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to understand each other. You wouldn't know what I mean when I say anything I say. If I said I and you said, well, that's subjective, what I means. We can go into some whole philosophical diatribe about that, but well, maybe I mean this I. Maybe I mean I, like the acknowledgement in the Marine Corps or in the Navy when you acknowledge an order. The, I means several different things, but they all mean things. The idea of subjective realities silly to me. There's only objective reality, and then there's people's cognitive biases against what's objectively true. Um,
Well, I mean, I mean, you're right. There is a lot of these people that are absolutely disingenuous, especially when it comes to that Kyle Rittenhouse thing. Because, like, bro, it's on video. Like, point to me the timestamp where he acted out of law. That's that. I mean, that discussion should be no more than 5 minutes with anyone. You know, if it drags on longer than that, then someone's shilling. But I do think there's some genuine people that I don't totally agree with. Um, on the other side, if you want to call it the other side of the aisle, of course, we're kind of seeing like a little bit of a political realignment now. So like, there's a lot of people there's a lot of people that are like outspoken leftists that I'm like, we pretty much agree on everything. Um, I forgot where I was going with this, but yeah. So kind of get back to Donald Trump, or to the Glenn Greenwald thing. We've seen this really big shift, and it can sort of be explained with where some people's paychecks are just better if they follow this ideological lens or whatever. But there's more to it than that, and it kind of goes back into Donald Trump with he came in wanting to drain the swamp, but he really didn't have enough people to help him pull the plug.
He did. I don't think he understood how horrible the Washington machine was and what they would do,
well,
and the lengths that they would go to.
And not to shill another podcast on my own podcast, but there's a really cool podcast called Good Old Boys Podcast, and I recommend it to people. But
one, I show myself all the time. All minus one. Two, overall minus one. That is based on John Stuart Mill's essay within the entire essay or the entire book on liberty, which is the freedom of speech and why it's important. But I always give it up to other YouTubers that are good or streamers wherever they're at, whatever platform they're at, because I think it's more important to bolster up the voices. I'm not interested in infighting. One of the things I actually wanted to bring up when you were talking about that was this whole Donald Trump thing and the political realignments and whatever else. One of the things my wife and I, because we're both kind of sort of out of the libertarian movement, and I was in on the libertarian movement, before Obama and all that stuff, right after the reelection of Bush. Now, I did vote for Bush a second time reluctantly, but which is also why I didn't vote for anybody for 3 years, or three presidential. I shouldn't say 3 years, but three presidential elections, um, because I didn't want to play that lesser of two evil games. But do you know? Do you know Larkin Rose? Who that is?
That name sounds familiar.
Well, he's a libertarian dude. I don't think he's got a ton of traction. He's been around for a long time, but I haven't watched him in forever. But he popped up on my YouTube the other day, and he was making this whole video about Donald Trump and if passing away and Donald Trump's fascism and the alt right. He starts naming off people who don't have principles. He starts saying Stefan Molyneux. And don't get me wrong, I don't think Stefan Molyneux is perfect. And I don't really, there's stuff with him years ago I didn't like. I didn't like how when he was against Ron Paul. He was saying all kinds of hyperbolic stuff about Ron Paul. And I unsubscribed from him years ago because of that. But he was getting better about certain things. He said Lauren Southern was talking about her, how terrible she was. Lauren Southern, I'm pretty sure, is only like 26. She just had a kid. She got married, whatever, was doing a lot of stuff. Very important. Look, the reality is Lauren Southern was a young girl, dropped out of college, very pretty, and was rather articulate. Despite the tiny bit of lisp that she has that sometimes would drive me nuts. But um, but in any case, that's why, and she was kind of brave. So you got this pretty girl who's out there, ready to put herself out there in your face. What Tommy Lahren was kind of the same thing. Although Tommy Lahren, I think, is not much of a brain compared to Lauren. In any case, I've never heard Lauren Southern say anything fascistic or Nazi-ish or anything like that. Like she just is like going into that alt-right, as they called it once. But the whole idea of the alt-right and all that stuff, I mean, look, guys, fascism's always been progressive. You've been duped and tricked by the progressives, by the commies, thinking that it's right wing. They were always cousins. It's not horseshoe theory. I know people like to talk about that. Oh, it's horseshoe theory. I'm starting to believe in horseshoe. No, it's not horseshoe theory. Fascism was the third way. It was the next way. It was the combination, sort of capitalism and communism. Problem is communism always has capitalism in it. You can never get rid of capitalism, folks. Trade is always going to exist. But this goes into a deep dive of economics and whatever else. But in any case, like, and Rose was talking all this stuff, and I'm like, dude, what happened, man? Like this, my wife would talk about this stuff. Like libertarians are sitting there trashing on Trump and whatever else. I'm like, you're listening to too much mainstream media. What is wrong with you? Like, I get it. There are the ANCAP types. I was there for a little bit, for a couple years. I thought about it, you know. Um, it's utopian, guys. Not going to happen because it doesn't take into account human nature. Um, anarcho-capitalism is actually something that we could say was something that came from the past, just like communism. And we grew into a more structure. But you have these different factions that are fighting and competing against each other, just like the Libertarian Party has gone to crap. No, it's never been that strong or that great, but um, the reality is we have a huge propaganda machine that is literally for the establishment power, and their direction is total control, absolute control over you. The Great Reset, all that stuff. They're cool with that. Build back better. Build back better on the Biden campaign site. You know that's a slogan from the World Economic Forum. Did Joe Biden plagiarize that from somebody else, as Tim Pool would say? No. But Tim Pool, as much as I like Tim, because he's a rather moderate and good and just gives a good straight take, and he's been in the media and he's honest, right? I know where Tim's at. Same reason why I like Glenn Greenwald or Matt Taibbi. I don't agree with their politics at all, but well, I shouldn't say that. I really agree with Glenn Greenwald's anti-war stances, but like Tim Pool's afraid, essentially, to say like, here's the conspiracy theory, right? And it's not a theory when it's open in public. Now he will talk about the Great Reset. He has a little bit, but he always tries to excuse it. Um, Yet I can go. I have books downstairs. And I can go and I can pull them out about, the open conspiracy written in the uh, 60s or 70s, talking about all this stuff, how they want to bring world communism. I can go to Manning Johnson, which I've used several times on All Minus One, written in the 50s. He was a communist. He was realized he was being used as a black man in the United States and how race was being used to divide America through communists. You can go look. In fact, I plan to make a video on this soon. You can go look at active measures, what the Soviets called active measures, and the destabilization they were trying to incorporate, and how they used racial things and political correctness to do such a thing. You can go back and look at the goals of the Frankfurt School. A lot of times we're not allowed to talk about that because all of a sudden you're anti-Semitic because they were Jews. I don't care if they were Jews. It has nothing to do with their ethnicity. It has to do with their ideas. Um, we can go back and look at H.G. Wells and the or not the open conspiracy, sorry. Um, or no, maybe it is the open conspiracy, but also the book, The New World Order. There's a couple of books called The Open Conspiracy, if I'm not mistaken. We can look at Edward Bernays in the book Propaganda. Again, I've covered briefly that before. And Edward Bernays says that people need to be told what to do. Like, I'm not Alex Jones here. I'm not saying they're turning the frogs gay. They're
I
turning the frogs gay.
I
Yeah.
am. I am that guy.
I'm not saying they're not either, though.
I'm not. I'm not.
All I'm saying is that there is nothing crazy that I'm talking about when you have all this documentation. Beyond that, there's a great book called Treason by a guy, pretty sure it's a pseudonym, named Garudis. And it's literal documentation of all this stuff. You can read about Fabian socialism. It's a great book on that. What is it? FDR. What is it? Is it FDR? Is that it, or is it Wilson? I can't recall. But I think it's FDR. But it's my something like one of his son-in-laws wrote this book about how he's misguided and led away by these world bankers. You can look into things like Scarlett Iserby, who was looking into in Norman Dodd, who were looking into like tax exempt organizations and whatever else. There's all of this stuff over the years, folks. And honestly, you're suffering from normalcy bias because you want the world to be simpler, or you're suffering from backfire effect because when you see this stuff, you go, oh, no, that can't be true. This is just a bunch of fools, blah, 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 blah. And what you're really doing is you're allowing your freedom, your children's and your grandchildren's freedom to be sold down the river. And some of these people are cool with that because they think it's the right thing to do. Um, and it's like this whole climate stuff. Like they conveniently change it to climate change because you can't deny climate change, right? Like the climate's going to change, right? But global warming was a little bit, eh. By the way, in the 70s and before that, they were saying it was a new ice age was coming. But and that was due to global emissions. But um that whole thing is used to justify the genocide of the world. Perhaps you know about the Georgia Guidestones. You know about them,
Mm-mm.
Tank? Okay. So there's some guy under the pseudonym RC Christian, which I forget what goes back to. I'd have to look that up. But RC Christian hired this granite maker to put these just random stones in, and it has like the 10 commandments of the New World Order, if you would. And it essentially, one of the top things it says is to keep the global population under 500 million or something like that. Now, 500 million is like 1% of the global population current. It's actually less than that. If I'm not mistaken. Like that's the idea. And to keep in step with nature and all this other stuff. This is why I was trying to give you that link to watch that show Utopia, because it can kind of get you. I know we talked about before about talking about conspiracy theory stuff. And again, I don't believe in everything that's out there or whatever. But look, guys, the what is it? The Monster of Jekyll Island, is that what it is? The name of the book? The Monster of Jekyll Island, I believe. is the story of how on Jekyll Island, here in the United States, off the coast of North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, or South Carolina, wherever, uh, was a place where a bunch of bankers got around to meet. Um, Rockefellers, J.P. Morgan, those kind of people, and they decided they were going to institute a third Federal Reserve Bank under the system we're in now. And they convinced Woodrow Wilson to implement it. Of course, Wilson was a globalist himself, and that right away made you a debt slave and took away your economic freedom. Because before that, we had a gold standard, and really the only time the gold standard was not in place in the United States was during the Civil War. And we can get into the tyranny of Lincoln if you want, but I don't know. It's a shotgun blast of stuff, but
Yeah. I mean,
like I
I
said,
I, I think we're all kind of circling around this idea that you know, regardless of where you like Trump or think is competent or not, he probably didn't realize the dragon he was trying to slay when he took this thing on. And oh, like I was saying before about the Good Old Boys podcast, I think they nailed it. They said Trump's biggest issue was that he didn't do what he's famous for, which is firing people. Like, that was his whole thing as a pop culture icon. You're fired. He didn't fire that many people.
he did. He did in the beginning.
He didn't. Yeah,
His cabinet mixed up a bunch.
but he.
And I actually have a really lefty friend who I love. I mean, I've known her since middle school or whatever. But like, I remember talking to her, ran into her, went out to the bar or whatever, ran into her, and she literally was like, "Oh, his cabinet's a mess, blah blah blah." And I'm like, "That's a good thing. Like moving people in and out's a good thing." Because
I think in theory it is, and maybe even in practice in a lot of situations, but I just don't know there's enough honest people to choose from to do what he wanted to do.
there are, I think, it's a matter of taking in the people who are not part of that deep state. Look, man, look at everyone complaining now. Not everyone, but a bunch of people on the left are complaining now about Joe Biden basically bringing in a bunch of warmongers and deep state, you know, dinos or rhinos or whatever he's bringing in. And it's like, I told you so, Tard. I told you so. Look, I know I'm just a little voice here on the interwebs, but it could not be more obvious to me. And maybe that's just, maybe I have a gift of seeing that other people don't. I don't know. But it's out there, and there are a lot of people that are awake to it. Or maybe I have some ability to just say, I don't care if you think I'm some right wing nut, because I don't have any, like, my thing, like, what am I going to do to you? Like, I don't believe in using violence, generally speaking. I'm not saying I'm incapable or wouldn't do it. Depends on how mad you make me. But as far as my faith goes, no, I'm going to avoid it as much as possible. Um, but I'm certainly capable, and I know I am. But I don't wanna be that guy either. I don't like being violent, It's one of the reasons why I left my former profession. Can hear your dog, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Not a big deal, man, but,
I don't
you need to
know.
get the shotgun or something? I mean,
No, it's fine.
um, but my point is, like, I don't wanna tax you. I mean, I understand taxes have purposes. But I think that most of the government and what it is should be trimmed down significantly, and therefore you should have a lot less tax. In fact, the only reason why our government got so big is because of the Federal Reserve Bank and the implementation of the income tax at the same time. Um, I love it when lefties like Cenk Uygur will talk about um, when he was arguing Ben Shapiro. He was like, Google it.
Yeah.
The marginal tax rate was 90%. Google it. We did fine. It's like, yeah, you moron. You're making a disingenuous argument though, because no one paid 90%. No one did that. And what happens is, I think a really good book everyone should read is In the Fed by Ron Paul. What happens is when you create this Centralized system, centralized banking, centralized authoritarian control of economy, government top down instead of bottom up, all that stuff. What you get? Well, you get a bunch of ineptitude and a bunch of corruption. And that's the problem we have in the United States. And people are more willing. We see this with the NBA, we see this with Hollywood. They're more willing to support China because there's a billion people over there that'll pay out of their pocket and put money in their pocket. Last night I saw a thing, just some random thing on Twitter. I don't really get on Twitter, where this girl was like, it was some comment about Jesus or whatever. I don't even remember where it came from. I think it was looking up something at James Lindsay's, or I didn't even recall. Um, but it was just some girl, and I looked at her profile. And it said she was only 17, so forgive her, whatever. But she was like, "Oh, Jesus was." They were like, "What if Jesus came back today?" And people were talking Trumpism, all this stupid. It was just stupid. And then she was like, "If Jesus came back today, like Jesus was a communist, and everyone would be, mad. But he was also, though, he was for slavery, and he was a sexist." And I'm like, where does it say that in the Bible? I'm like, that's right. You never read that. And Jesus was not a communist. I'm like, first off, as far as the sexism thing, Jesus was seen with women alone, which was not socially acceptable at the time. Okay. Like he would talk to women by himself, and that was not the norm, folks, especially amongst Jews. Two, he never spoke on slavery. Now, the apostles spoke about slavery, but all they said was they never said to get rid of it or anything else. They said be the best slave that you could be, because the whole point of Christ was um essentially that there are two kingdoms. And that was the other point I made to her. There's the kingdom of this world, which is run by Satan, and then there's the kingdom of God, which is the kingdom to come, or the next life, or after the resurrection. Jesus was an anti-materialist. Communism is inherently a materialist philosophy. It is based on materialism. In fact, if you read the works of the fascists, if you read Mussolini, if you read Gentili, if you read those people and what they believed, it was the rejection of pure materialism and class struggle, and that materialism wasn't everything and the spiritual was more. Now, that's why, again, too, people conflate fascism with like traditionalism, which isn't true. Fascism was not a reactionary movement. It was a progressive movement. And by the way, folks, read the Communist Manifesto. There is reactionary socialism. There's feudal social. It's in there.
Oh yeah, you'll
So,
see that stuff now. Like you got a lot of guys that are, I don't know if they call themselves like, I think we talked about it before, the post left or whatever. Um, but they're basically just like, they're like, class the only thing that matters, and not worried about all the social justice stuff. And people are calling them reactionary, like reactionary communist, reactionary socialist. So it's it's just one of those things where like, the, I'm not a progressive in any stretch of the imagination. I don't necessarily believe in. I don't believe the society can move forward. I think we kind of just go in circles. Um, so I by definition have to be reactionary, which is fine.
but in what form? Because reactionary in a traditional sense was reaction. Reactionary was, as far as I understand, goes back. All this goes back as far as modern history to the French Revolution, right? To post Enlightenment, French Revolution, right before or right as the Industrial Revolution was coming up. And a reactionary was essentially somebody who was wanting to go back to pure
Mhm.
feudalism, or the monarchy, right?
Yeah. So for me, the kind of the way I look at it is I kind of look at it on two sides. So you've got the progressive, which is this the whatever it is, the bend of history bends towards just or whatever. It's like we're going to constantly move society forward. And I generally believe that you can go back and you can turn back the clock to pretty much any era, and it's going to be more or less better than what we have now. Um,
Well, there's a confusion too. There's a conflation of uh progressed society as far as creature comforts and materialism and technology.
well, yeah,
Because because the ancient Romans had a lot of creature comforts and materialism, but they didn't have the kind of advanced technology that we have today. And um, if you listen to someone like Voldemort, I watched him, not the whole thing because it gets tedious, but I watched him back when Stefan Molyneux was still on YouTube. I watched him debate Stefan Molyneux, and that was one of his big arguments was like, oh, with technology, if it wasn't for technology, um, technology was the thing, and that's where all this kind of socialistic idea and communism comes from. At the same time, Molyneux was making no argument for slavery. He was saying it's always been morally reprehensible. But one of the reasons why slavery came about, and by the way, before I ever heard this argument, I kind of came up with this on my own. It's not hard to understand, right? Is that technology allowed slavery to disappear? Um, because there's a certain amount of burden that needs to be taken on in life. Now, don't get me wrong, slavery is rooted in essentially people wanting to be the rulers in the upper class, and that's what we're seeing now. Because if we get the socialist and communistic system, that's what we're going to get. We're going to get slavery again. And so Voldemort's so idiotic and such a sophist that he doesn't even understand what he's advocating for is slavery. Again, that's what all communists and socialists are actually advocating for. Could slaves own property? Let's look at things from first principles. Could slaves own property? Were they allowed to move freely and escape the system? Was anyone in any socialistic, truly socialistic, communistic nation allowed to move freely, to just go where they want? Are you allowed to pick your own destiny as far as your job, right? As far as what you want to do in life, are you allowed to pick that if you're a slave? Or are you pigeonholed into a thing? Um, are you able to marry whomever you want, right? Now, depending on what part of history of slavery people were allowed to marry, depending on what region, wherever at, some weren't. Do you own your own body? This is very important. Property, right? Property rights starts with you owning yourself. Do you think that someone who's sold into slavery as a child, let's say, great movie, by the way, Memoirs of a Geisha. Memoirs of a Geisha is a fantastic movie, beautifully shot, great cinematography, compelling story, and it's essentially the story of a little girl who was sold into slavery by her parents, and this was in Japan, and this was very, very common all throughout the world because people saw other people as cattle, as fodder. And this is where the socialists will go, well, that's the capitalist system. Yeah, but if everyone wants to sit home and do nothing, which is what socialism and communism incentivizes, until you put a gun in their face and say, you know, you're going to work. Um, you know what's the difference? What's the difference between putting a gun in my face and saying, no, you're going to go work today, or selling you off into slavery?
Yeah.
You know, everything when I analyze it, it doesn't have to be that complicated. It's just first principles. It's like, let's look and compare and contrast the things together. Are there differences? Of course. Of course. There are differences between me and Shaquille O'Neal. Like Shaquille O'Neal's like, 7 feet tall, and I'm like 5'6". So there's a big difference. He's a big old giant, and I'm sure if he kicked me once with a front kick, I would go flying across the room. And I would need a gun. you know, but we're still human beings. We're still people. Uh, like let's look at things based on the most simple principles of what they are. And that's kind of how I approach the world. And that's why I think I can decipher and dissect a lot of this stuff more easily than a lot of people because they overcomplicate it, dude.
Well, I mean, and that's kind of why I've kind of moved away from this whole idea of you're going to debate or whatever. I don't care about that sort of thing. I just try to have a little bag of lenses to view the world through. Um, but kind of going back, the term reactionary, like it doesn't bother me if someone wants to label me as that. There's worse things to call me for sure. Um, but I do I do think that things generally were better in the past as far maybe not in every way, but I think we've talked about this in the past. But my main goal in for society right now is just social cohesion. I would like to live in a country where a lot of them didn't want me to die. Um, I mean, that's just, I mean, that's, I'm not asking for much here.
They're completely justified because you're part of the oppression, and your silence is violence,
Mm.
and you want to prop up the system of oppression and evil, and therefore it's all justified. Because remember, Tank, the ends always justify the means, right?
Yeah.
Dude,
Well, I mean, and that's what, and if it comes down to the people that think that way, want to be in it, we want to split this country up, I'm totally fine with that too. I don't have, I know where to cut my losses. You know what I mean? I guess is what I'm saying. Um, so
well,
I don't,
that brings a good point to balkanization. I'll
yeah.
let you continue, but yeah,
Well, yeah, I
we
mean,
get
that's
that.
just, like here we are. We've seen this election go down. We've seen how corrupt it is. You've got one part of the country that just absolutely believes this thing was shanghaied, which it was. That's the right side, and then you've got the wrong side who think this is just completely normal and the most secure election in history. Um,
Yeah, but again, that's your normalcy bias,
yeah,
or you're,
yeah,
I mean, or you're just a jerk because that's not true. Like all of a sudden, Russia, Russia, Russia,
yeah.
and then all of a sudden, the most secure election
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah.
ever.
It's like when Gavin Newsom goes out and does his shit and then says, "Oh, well, we've got a lot. You guys got it locked down," even though he broke his own orders. Um, and like anyone paying attention to that who doesn't go, at least raise an eyebrow at, well, this guy doesn't think it's that big of a deal, so maybe I should not think it's that big of a deal. If your overlords aren't scared, then why are you? Kind of deal. Um,
Right.
you know, but some people will just make excuses like, oh, well, it wasn't that big of a deal what he did. He was just, or what was it? Who's that chick that when they had that big Biden or the big anti-Trump protest after Biden was declared the winner, they were like, oh, well, we've all got COVID fatigue, we got to go blow off some steam. It doesn't matter that thousands of people got nut to butt in a street during a pandemic after he told us it's the most, we're going to kill grandma if we're going to Thanksgiving. You can't take these people serious. And if someone does take those kind of people serious, then we probably don't have a lot to agree on.
Yeah, well, I mean, that goes back to the postmodernist power dynamic. If you guys want to check out some work on that, by the way, and you're not in the awares and the knows, read Stephen Hicks. Go, obviously, Jordan Peterson's a very good resource. Um, Jonathan Haidt's not too bad on that, actually. He doesn't really get into the postmodernism, but the righteous mind and the moral foundation stuff ties into all that. Um, although it's interesting when Jonathan Haidt talks sometimes how lefty he gets. I used to like, to some degree, guys like Brett Weinstein or Weinstein, I guess as they're calling themselves. But Brett's cucked so much
Oh my
on
god,
the
yeah.
the virus, dude. His and I don't understand how you can be a lefty and talk about some of the stuff he does, and then whatever else. But and what's his brother? Eric.
Eric, yeah.
I like Eric a lot. Although Eric has some kind of far out there ideas about structuring things as well. And it's just kind of, honestly, it comes from this capacity when it comes to people like that who are very intelligent, right? Like I have a general idea what my IQ is, and I know I'm in an upper percentile. I'm not the smartest. I'm not a genius, right? I'm not saying I am. I'm not claiming that at all. But some of these people are very smart, and I think Aaron Weinstein's probably for sure a genius. But you get so smart at some point, you're stupid because you're not seeing things. You're analyzing things at a level, and you're like, why can't other people see this? And I don't get me wrong, I suffer from this too. I've been talking about it on the stream. It's like, why can't people see this? The difference is, I'm not saying my way has to be right, and therefore I get to be supreme dictator and tell you how we're going to organize everything. My opinion of it is I'm probably right, but it's just best I leave you alone and you guys figure it out on your own, and I can talk about it openly and we can talk about it. But hopefully I can convince you. But even in my convincing of you, it's not like, oh, no, we're gonna do it, or here's the gun, you know? Um,
Well, those
so any
guys, the thing that gets me about them is they still belong to a tribe, and I don't mean the tribe of
yes.
I don't mean a tribe of Judah for any Wignats that are might be listening. I'm not going down that hole, but
It's
but
all
but
that talk.
yeah, they kind of see themselves, and I'm not trying to be unfair here, but they kind of see themselves as like this academia in exile, like the true academics that are supposed to be on the throne of academia making calls, and they've just kind of been, usurped by these whatever. um I don't think they're ready to call bullshit on that institution.
Well,
Which
look at Sam Harris, man.
Yeah,
Who's a guy who I absolutely believe has no imagination whatsoever. Um, and yet somehow imagines that Trump is somehow worse than Hitler in his most recent TDS.
yeah, that's
And
retarded.
I've never been a huge. I totally respect Sam Harris and his intelligence and all that kind of stuff. Never been a huge fan. I was only a fan of his to the degree that he was willing to speak out to certain socio-political issues that other people were afraid to speak of. But if you look at his arguments with Jordan Peterson, his debates, or his arguments for atheism, or that were there's like these atheistic arguments that there's no free will, like if you guys understand any sort of history on this, and I don't know the long ancient history on this, but I do know that the idea of free will is Gnostic, which is interesting because Gnostic means to know, means you have special knowledge, the intellectia, if you would, or the magi, the special class that has the special knowledge, the esoteric knowledge. Of course, I've studied the occult, so that's all that was part of that. But on top of that, then you have the Stoics, who were essentially Gnostics, and they all believed in predetermination. So you're telling me that you're an atheist that believes everything's predetermined, which means you're actually religious about your atheism. Uh, and I know that's kind of a leap for some people, whatever, but the reality is that if you think that all these little switches just predetermine the way everyone acts from every second, all the time, whatever, and you don't believe in free will, like you're also going to say there's no God or there's nothing controlling it. And by the way, I believe in free will, folks. I'm not an Augustinian. I'm not a Calvinist. I reject both of those. Those are actually Gnostic philosophies. They're not Christian in any way. They're not biblical. They're Gnostic 100%. I can prove that. I will prove that if anyone wants to challenge me on it. It's easy to prove, um, unless you're brainwashed. But um, this whole idea, you know, is something like we were born a certain way and the universe is going a certain way and we can only do certain things, and therefore um we we have no actual free will and everything's pre-programmed. It's like what, and at the same time you're going to be an atheist, like what where are you I don't even know like why you're even intellectually relevant at this point. Like what are you're saying nothing matters essentially.
Well, think
You're
about
saying we're all just a cog in a machine. Well, who's the ghost in the machine?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, to zoom out a little bit and kind of connect it to what I was talking about before, um, why was Sam Harris ever relevant?
Because he somehow got on Bill Maher, who's also an atheist, and he
Mhm.
said that 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 Muslims did terroristic acts, and then suddenly Ben Affleck says, "That's racist. That's racist. How dare you? That's racist." And Sam Harris is like, "What are you talking about? Like being a Muslim's a religion, it's not a race."
Yeah.
And then that woke up Dave Rubin, and I like Dave Rubin. I've actually met Dave Rubin briefly, but seemed to be a very nice guy. Um, you know, um, and Sam Harris became relevant, I think, because he wrote a few books and he was in with Dawkins and that
Yeah.
whole new atheism and all that kind of stuff. And just,
Well, we kind
I
of
don't
want
even know. I didn't even know where I started with all
Yeah,
this, but
yeah, but kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
what I want to get into here is that you got people like Eric and Weinstein on stuff. I agree with you; they're absolutely smart people. Jordan Peterson, I'll throw in there too. They're all smart people, but they still kind of believe in this institution that is really just smoke and mirrors at this point.
And
Um,
that's their problem. They don't
yeah,
understand that they believe in a religion.
yeah. Now James Lindsay's gone completely populist, and he's been blowing Twitter up. He was like, "I'm coming
I
out."
like James Lindsay a lot.
Yeah,
I was
um,
actually, as far as that group goes, and Peter Boghossian,
yeah.
Heather Penrose was really disappointing because she's like, "I'm gonna vote for Biden just for the peace," and it's like what's wrong with you? Like you're talking about all this intersectional nonsense, whatever, and you're just going to continue the system where Lindsay was like, "What choice do I have but to vote for Trump at this point?"
Yeah.
Which good on him. Good on
Yeah.
him, man.
And that's completely respectable. But the thing about it is, I feel like a lot of these people that are just, people that say things like, "I'm just going to vote for Biden out the peace." Like I said before, they're throwing a gang sign. They're they're like, I may have some divergent opinions, but I'm still part of this tribe. Like it's still like they're still kind of aspiring to be, um, in that sort of aristocracy, to use a lack of better term.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I mean, I don't really understand that because I've always been a heterodox. Like I'm not fully contrarian, but I'm definitely a heterodox. My daughter's very contrarian.
Yeah.
She, um, and she's like me on steroid. In fact, it drives my wife nuts because, um, maybe I haven't heard so much about it lately, but my wife would be like, "I got to deal with you, and then I got to deal with her all day too," and it's like, and it's like she's 1,000 times worse. I'm like, yeah, because she's a girl.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm a dude. I know how to restrain myself some. But with that, dude, I want to get into let's talk about balkanization a little bit, the possibilities of that, and I don't think that that's coming anytime soon.
Right.
Excuse me. Let's talk about the potential of civil war. Let's look at some of these articles I sent you if you can get them pulled up. But let's take a break as well, since
Okay.
I'm 2.5 beers down and I need to use a little boys room.
Okay.
So speaking of these intellectual dark web types or whatever, someone who's not necessarily within that little cabal, you know who I really do like though? James Lindsay's great. You know who's just the man? Uh, Douglas Murray.
I
That
don't know a lot
dude.
about him. Yeah, I haven't seen him very much.
Uh, yeah, I mean, he's like the sensible gay English liberal dude that writes about the death of the West and the um um he talks about that. He talks about the cult of wokeness. He talks about the mob. He talks about whatever else. If you haven't looked into I'm looking at stuff right now just so I can maybe find you something, or I'll send it to you later on. But yeah, I mean, Douglas Murray is just killing it, and here you have a very sensible guy who you would think would align on the left because of his sexual orientation, or he's supposed to, who's talking up against these things because he understands. And also, he's an atheist, but he understands the need for religion. And I will always appreciate somebody like that. You know, one of the reasons why I appreciate Dave Rubin. Um, you get somebody unlike Milo, who Milo was fun and great to watch. Don't get me wrong, but Milo just this extreme, personality. And I think Milo is more about his ego. You get egotism when you're a personality who wants to just like stir everything up. You get a little bit of egotism within that, right? And I've seen that time and time again with all kinds of people I've met in person and whatever else. They're just like, oh, I'm the center of attention kind of thing and whatever else. And don't get me wrong, I think most all of us are capable of experiencing that, unless you're like a super shy person. But Douglas Murray, he's just this very sensible, reasonable voice, just talking about these issues, very well thought out when he talks, and again, just of that little group we were speaking of, very very important. Um,
Yeah, I guess kind of like rehashing what I was saying before. As long as you got guys that are smart like that, that refuse to question the institution as a whole, I think you're going to have these intellectual dark web types that are just going to say, "Oh well, I'm super smart and I've got some good takes, but I'm ultimately going to support Biden because of whatever bullshit reason they come up with." Um, so it is what it is.
yeah, sorry, I'm talking to the chat
Are
here
you
because
good?
yeah. Well, by the way, I'm just typing it, but I'll just speak to you directly. So LT Binary, I guess that's Lieutenant Binary. Um, Yeah,
LT.
you can find us here. We're every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. We come on, we talk about whatever. We actually don't do a lot of planning for the show. We just kind of talk about what we feel like talking about, discuss it right before we go on. And we are live streaming now on YouTube at The Ends Justify the Memes, and we have an entropy as well if you want to make any donations outside of D Live. But you know, we do what we do. And we're small, we're trying to grow, and just mainly we just want to talk about these things. But let's get into balkanization, dude.
Okay.
And do you have any thoughts on that, because you kind of mentioned it earlier? It's the reason why I wanted to segue into it.
I, d- I mean, not to get completely blackpilled, I guess, but I don't see any other way around it at this point. There's a case to be made that we should have been balkanized from the get go. Um, and we kind of were. South Carolina never wanted to join the Union, but it happened, and there was some civil wars, and some people did some things, and all that sort of thing. But we can I feel like we're going to have to if we want to make peace, unless we can find some kind of common ground. But I don't see that happen at this point. I mean, people from different parts of the country are so out of touch with like general rural America. Like I saw a tweet recently that was like, what do people outside of New York do without bodegas? Like, where do they buy their toilet paper and dishwashing detergent and M&Ms? And I'm like, every gas station ever. Like, what are you talking? Like, what are you talking about? Like,
Well, that's like there was some journalist
yeah,
some years ago that was flying over the Midwest, and he tweeted this. And he took pictures, and there were farm plots.
yeah, yeah.
You could see the grids of farm plots or whatever, the land parcels, and he's like, "What is this? This is a weird geographic feature." And people are like, "These are farms." You know, like
Yeah,
you're out of the city.
how can you find common ground with someone who's that different from you? Like literally, you could. I feel like you could take a rural person from Tennessee, Irwin, Tennessee, let's say, and you drop them off in Nicaragua, and they're probably going to have more in common with that coffee farmer than they will with
Agua,
yeah
agua.
yeah than they will with anyone in like New York or LA. But those guys have a big say in like how our country's run. So
Well, it's like this progressive ideology too that all of America is racist, and the largest amount of racism I see is within big cities,
oh yeah,
and it's
yeah.
because of the crunch together different ethnic groups that tend to stick together as tribes, and you get a lot less of that in more rural areas. It doesn't mean like the most rural areas. Obviously, if you're in an ultra rural area that's really like white, or I'd say black, but I don't know there's a lot of that per se. But like where there's an exclusion almost completely of other races, there might be some, but generally speaking, that just doesn't exist. It's this whole myth on the left. But speaking to balkanization, here's my thing. I mentioned it either in the beginning of the stream or before we started, because we talked about this briefly. Um, Yesterday I was watching Don of Plebeian Media, and he does a really good job, and he's been growing. Actually, I started watching him. He had 1,000 subs, and we're talking about like 4 months, 5 months ago. And he's up to 4,000 now. And so, best of luck to him. Let him keep growing. So if you guys don't know, Plebeian Medium, Plebeian Media, however you want to pronounce it, go check him out over on YouTube. Does like a daily show, I think around 10 a.m. every day. And he's a very conservative guy, but he's also a brother from another mother because he was a Marine. Although I think he was an artillery guy, so he wasn't man enough to be an infantry. But
Mm.
you always gotta take
Shots
those shots, brother.
fired. Shots
That's how it
fired.
always goes. How it always goes. Um, uh, anyways, so he was saying though, if we balkanize, don't you think that these people who would secede in California, whatever, when they push it on you, because they have to push it on you now, because technically every state, we are states, not provinces, we are states because we are countries. That's what the word state means, who entered a union. We are closer to the European Union than people realize. That's actually, the European Union was modeled off of the American Union under the current Constitution. And when the South seceded, it was about keeping that union together. And what did they do? They went back to a confederation, which in their terminology was weaker than a union. And so that gave more power back to the states. And we always ignore the 10th Amendment. We especially ignore the Ninth Amendment, which is the right of the people. In any case, don't you think that these people who are essentially, whether they know it or not, are Stalinist, who must tell you what to do, who must tell you, look, look, Tank, when you and your wife have a child, and that child decides one day, if it's a little girl or a little boy, that it wants to wear a dress or pants or whatever, your child knows at 4 year old, it's transgender. It knows, Tank, and you should let that child just decide that it's going to be transgender. Biden has said this crap about 8-year-olds. I mean, And I know Biden's just playing the game and he doesn't care about the reality and about establishing the wealth of his family and the prestige, and his name will go down in the history books and whatever else. I get that. My point is, if we do balkanize, and I think Don made this a very cogent point, if we do balkanize, these people will still come after us, right? The Soviet Union spread out to all of the surrounding nations. They did this. This is the point of communism, is to expand across the world. They call you a colonizer, yet that is the very mission of their political philosophy or ideology, is to be colonizers. And therefore they're going to liberate through all of the murder and all of the evil and all of the destruction. They're going to liberate mankind eventually, because again, the ends justify the means, right?
Well, and I think you're right. And two questions that I'm not sure that can be answered by either of us. Or the first question is, why do these people care? Like, why would they want to keep us? They if these people that have this like disdain for the rural parts of the United States, if the rural part, if the rural states, if Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, and Florida said, peace, bitch, we're out. Um, why would or why would New York care? Why would California care? I think you're right in that there's a sense of like control that these people have. Like, you can't just leave. Like, you can't just take your ball and go home. Kind of,
Look at Brexit, dude.
yeah. And that's the thing. Like, I don't fully understand. I think until we get to the point to where we can like, I mean, we can call them Stalinists, and that's not exactly untrue in kind of the way they're looking at
Not
this.
Trotskyites.
Yeah.
'Cause
Well,
Trotsky didn't
well,
care about that.
I mean that to say that they want us to stick around and they're willing to use force to make it happen. But I think we have to really figure out why that's the case. And kind of like for me, like we're talking about, like if we're going to go for like a method for balkanization, I would say let's make it where they don't want to keep us, but it seems like we can't do anything to make them not want us.
Well, the problem is, it's the unfortunate problem in my mind, is this is just the human spirit, man. And this is when we get I'm not going to delve into it too much today, because we've done it a bit too much of it here recently in a few of our streams, and I've done a bit too much of it also on my own channel over on All Minus One on over on YouTube. Well, if maybe you're watching this, I don't think anyone's watching on YouTube but me. But in any case, nah, it's fine, it's whatever. But the point is that at some point this is truly a spiritual battle. And I don't mean spiritual just as an attitudinal and how you think or act or direct your life, but I mean greater forces, powers, as Ephesians, as Paul says in Ephesians, the princes and principalities of the air. Um, this is the nature of humanity, is to dominate and control and to manipulate. And I'm not saying all of humanity is evil either. I'm not saying there aren't good things, but I'm not an expert. But I know I've read a lot of stuff from the ancient past, as we would call it. It hasn't changed, man. Like these commies, these socialists, they want the same thing people wanted 4 or 5 thousand years ago.
Mhm.
And there's always an oligarchical class and always an elitist class that says, yeah, okay, you want this safety and security, you want this economic prosperity, we'll do it for you, but you got to pay for it. You got to pay for it with your work and your labor, but we'll make it all equal except for us. Well, we get to control it. When you get to control it, well, we know better, right? This is the God King idea. This is the idea that the God King knows best. The God King has the wherewithal to bring about the utopia. bring about perfection of life. And until people start waking up and understanding, and again, I'm not an anarchist, I'm a minarchist. There has to be some sort of basic structure to adjudicate between individuals, right? Because things will happen. However, until people start realizing that, oh, it's up to me to be a better person, it's my responsibility to take care of myself and my family. And then to also, on top of that, go, wait a minute, some people aren't able to do that. Some not, by, and I'm not talking about people who do it aren't able to do that by choice because that's their own dumb fault. Like there's no biblical concept of, oh, you're an idiot and you make dumb choices. I need to take care of you. No, no, no. It's actually the opposite. The Bible's kind of like, go for it, guy. Learn your lessons the hard way. But as far as taking care of those people who can't help themselves, like the mentally handicapped, cripples, back in the day, widows who couldn't own property, orphans, that kind of stuff. People who just can't. Yeah, we have a responsibility. I absolutely believe that. But I'm not going to say, well, my responsibility all of a sudden needs to be put upon everyone else as well, right? I will advocate for you to do the same, but I won't force you by the gun to do the same. And the communists and the socialists, they don't care. Again, it's always about control. It's always about power in the end. Um, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, you're definitely not wrong. I would just like to. I mean, in this, neither one of us going to answer this question, but I'd like to know why. Like,
Dude, but people have been asking that
uh,
question for centuries. I mean,
like I get why the CIA wants to keep power. You know, I get like the people that are really in charge. I understand why they want to keep power because having power is awesome. But why would your average New Yorker like hitch their horse to that wagon? Like,
actually, you know, Tank, I think you might be wrong about that, though. I don't know how many people you know who live in New York, but I do know some. In fact, I have former Marine buddies who live in the Bronx and stuff like that, and a lot of people that live in New York are actually conservative, but it doesn't matter because the people that have money, power, and influence want to control everything.
well, you're right.
Not all,
Maybe average is the wrong term. Let me
or
put
a
it.
lot of them are brainwashed, or
Yeah.
they don't know any better. They're low information, low resolution, that kind of stuff, right?
Let me put it to you like this. The South tried to leave one time, and it kind of raised a big stink, and some people wouldn't let them. So, okay, I kind of understand why Lincoln wouldn't want the South to go. You know, Charleston being like a pretty big port, and there's some economic issues there. But your average Union soldier, why the fuck do they care? Like, what? Like, okay, South Carolina wants to leave. Bye. Like, you know, I don't know. I never really got a good answer to that question.
Yeah, well, the answer is historical in that the North and the South were competing economically for about 30 to 50 years before that, and the North had more power constantly politically, and therefore kept imposing stuff on the South. And the South had no tariffs, so they had a lot more economic trade in the South, whereas the North had tariffs, but they had the industry that the South didn't have. And so there's this competition, and the North kept pushing the South out. And it wasn't all due to slavery. Uh, that is a simplistic point of view. And then when people go back and they go, well, but slavery was in the reason why the South seceded. They even said so themselves. Yes, it was the absolute final straw, whatever. Like that was the last thing for them because that was their economic success to some degree. But tariffs and other laws, there's a lot going on there with bullying North versus South. Do we see it today? The South used to be Democratic, right? The Democratic Party, or the Democrat Party, I should say, isn't really that much different. They've just kind of changed the veneer a little bit. And what do we see from Democrats? Well, the South, they're a bunch of local yokels. They're a bunch of hicks. They're dummies. here, us in the North, we're so smart and intelligent. It's like, you guys are, far more jackasses than most people I know in the South. I mean, the further south you get, dude, especially depending on where you're at, smaller towns, whatever, people get really nice, really sweet, take care of you, very polite. It's very different. It ain't anything like being anywhere in the North. But there are rednecks everywhere too. They're country boys everywhere, including in New York.
Yeah. I've never really been above the Mason Dixon, because if I'm going to leave the country, I'd rather go somewhere else. Um, but it's like my friend says, anything above the Mason Dixon is foreign policy to me. Um,
Well,
but
I've never been a big Southern Pride guy growing up or anything like that. I always understood, like, growing up in Maryland, Maryland's not really considered a Southern
yeah,
state. Anyone south of Maryland's like, oh, Maryland's not a Southern state. It's like, yeah, but I'm south of In fact, of course, I grew up like 5 miles from the Mason-Dixon line.
yeah,
But like, um, at the same time, I live in a rural area, mountains, all that stuff. Like, people used to have the Confederate flag. When I was
mhm.
in high school in the 90s, people would have their cars, their trucks with gun racks with guns in them, hunting rifles on school property.
Bro. In my high school, black people wore Confederate flags.
I know, because it had
Yeah,
nothing to do with
yeah.
slavery. It had to do with the rebellion of the oppressive North. And the narrative of that has changed so much. And then people will go back today who know no different, and they'll be like, "Oh, why would someone have this flag, this and that?" And it's like, it's not about slavery. Was that an issue? Yes. Would that have gone away? Absolutely. Name me a Western country today that has slavery. What have happened, folks?
Mhm.
Would have happened. We're the only country in the world that fought a war over it, or at least it was a major issue of the war, a part of it. The only one. That should tell you something. That's not about the issue itself. It's about power. Um, but with that, dude, can you pull up that article I sent you, the We the People thing?
See which one I got here. Was it News LA or was it?
No, it should be the last link I sent you. Not the last link, but
Oh,
it's
I
We the
see, I
People,
see,
the
I
We
see.
People convention. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Aha. All right, let's go to article, and I will.
Do your fang dangling?
I got it, bro. I got it.
Do your fang dangling
Yeah,
magic?
there it is.
Okay. Well, I don't see it on the stream.
Well, it's coming up, bro.
Oh, there it is. There it is. There it is. All right. All right. So, folks, I have been a supporter of the president. I'm not some huge MAGA dude, and neither is Tank. We're not this. We're, I would say, more reasonable type people. I'm not saying those people are insane. I'm not calling them Nazis or any of that nonsense. I don't think any of that. I think they're good people. We just don't think that Trump it was the end all be all. We think he was a good thing to mix things up. And I should actually speak for myself, but this is actually largely what we started off with in this conversation is that I think Trump was very much needed and him to win this reelection was very much needed. I don't count him out yet either. I'm not all black pilled on this. I don't know what's going to happen. We're still going through the constitutional process.
Hmm.
That means December 14th and then January 6th. Those are the dates. And then if Biden gets through all that, then Biden's the president, unfortunately. Um, but let's hope not. So, anyways, this article here was released by not an article, actually, it's an ad that was put in the Washington Times that was released by some Ohio militia member. And if we scroll down to let's get down to where it says the points of Lincoln. What they're doing here is they're calling for martial law by Donald Trump which is absurd. Let's not do that. Let's not go down that road of tyranny for a new election and just a federal election with paper ballots and the military to do it. This would be pretty unprecedented as far as I understand. Now, maybe there's some precedence in this in the US history. I have no idea. Um, not really that I'm totally aware of. Uh, sorry guys, if I'm stumbling over my words because that's number four. Like I said, you don't know with high life, dude. Just haven't been drinking as much. So, anyways, so it says here, it says Lincoln ordered hundreds of northern newspapers that spoke against him to be shut down and their owners and editors arrested. Lincoln ordered the arrest of Ohio Congressman Clement Vanland
Good luck on that one.
Gale.
Yeah.
However you say his name, I
Vallandigham.
guess.
Vallandigham.
Okay,
I
I'm too
guess.
dyslexic
I
to pronounce
guess.
stuff. So, for the crime of speaking out, Chief Justice Roger Taney, who ruled that Lincoln violated the U.S. Constitution, which he did, when he literally suspended the writ of habeas corpus. After hearing this, Lincoln signed an arrest warrant to have the Chief Justice arrested. And then thousands in Maryland for the crime of suspected Southern sympathies were arrested for some odd years. And this article goes on, and this is just insane, man. I don't like Lincoln. Like, Lincoln had some good stuff, like when he was running, when he was arguing, making his arguments against slavery and all that kind of stuff. Lincoln had some good stuff. Once Lincoln became president, he literally became a tyrant. And dude, these people are asking for Trump to do this. And when I read those things, all I could think of, this is the stuff that actually not as bad, but this is stuff that Obama did.
Mm-hmm.
And they're actually calling for Trump to do the same kind of things. And every time people are like, well, Trump did all these illegal things and he did this and he did that, and he's just a tyrant. I'm like, give me an example. Tell me, show me. Because it's only an accusation. I've yet to hear a singular well, what about all the cases, all the court cases, all where he's lost in court? And it's like, yeah, every president did that. I had a buddy from the Marines. I guess he's a former buddy. I'm pretty sure he unfriended me on Facebook. I have no idea. Wasn't on Facebook for years, and I saw him go full TDS, and he was always kind of lefty a little bit. Usually always uninformed too, which goes hand in hand. But was talking about Trump's use of eminent domain and taking, and I'm like, taking land and whatever, and always Trump did this and Trump did that, and I'm like, dude, the government's been doing this for freaking decades, and you're just now talking about it because of Trump. I'm like, get your crap straight. He also flipped out on me because of he believed Kavanaugh was a rapist and all that. The mainstream media said so. Yeah, dude. And I was like, he was never political on Facebook before and whatever. And he's like, I don't really care what you think, blah, 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 because you did this and that. And I'm like, dude, do I need to bring up like your stuff when you were young with women? Like, I never raped anybody, by the way. I'm just saying. He was just talking about like stupid things that happen when you're young as you're trying to figure out the opposite sex, right? And I'm like, oh, do you want to bring this up? Because we have all the same examples, I'm like, buddy, I can talk about you too.
I mean, but it goes back to that thing. Like, everyone's got a really short memory. Trump's this huge,
or they're morally posturing.
Yeah, or that. But I try to be white belt a little bit on some of this stuff. I just think that people, I mean, because we're really like, they don't teach history in school, and what they do teach, you forget anyway. And they're not going. I mean, they don't have time to go into the nuances of stuff like this. And you could argue that what's listed in these bulletins here really should be the highlights of that era of history, but the textbooks aren't going to cover it, and you can chalk that up to whatever you want to. But it is what it is, and you kind of see this meme floating around Twitter right now of waiting on they're saying Trump's going to cross the Rubicon, and like pull some. Basically, what this article is outlining, pull some serious shit. And the thing about it is, I don't think he's going to do that because.
He shouldn't do it though. I find it immoral
Well,
personally.
no.
Yeah.
He sure, okay, he shouldn't do it, but I mean, I wouldn't care if he did myself. But so I'm saying regardless, it wouldn't be unprecedented. I think Moldbug pointed out at some point that if any modern United States president actually harnessed the full power of the executive branch, people would actually like shit themselves at how much they could really do if they wanted to. But no one's going to do that.
Yeah, I don't agree, man, because I think the executive is actually far more weak than you think. And
well, no, on paper it's weak for sure. But if you've got,
what would they allow the executive to do?
Yeah. I'm talking about if he said,
well, Lincoln, FDR, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. That's there has been no more. You could maybe point to Andrew Jackson, maybe Thomas Jefferson to some degree, which is an interesting kind of hypocritical contradiction. But I feel like Jefferson actually thought he was trying to save the republic before it was too. I mean, because we were very early on when he was the president.
Yeah, but because you can. That's kind of what I recommend the book, the Machiavellians, because it's really the only political science book you need to read. But there's things that people can do on paper, what the Constitution says, and then there's, what Machiavelli says, and are those types think, and it's like, well, look, if you've got enough people that like you, and you've got enough control over certain branches of the government, you can basically do whatever you want to do, like Lincoln
did. But again, like we've briefly talked about this before, but Machiavelli and the Prince, he's talking about a monarchy. However, he's kind of a classical liberal.
In the beginning,
yeah. Like he's kind of like at that age where classical liberalism was starting. I mean, he's no John Locke, he's no Montesquieu, he's no Adam Smith, he's no Bastiat, he's no de Tocqueville. Man, who else could I name? Just dozens of great authors and writers. Obviously, there's a lineage there because Locke and Montesquieu were way before de Tocqueville and Bastiat. But there's crap. I'm trying to think of the name of the Edmund Burke. So he's the founder within the classical liberal tradition of modern conservatism. Not really modern, because we like modern conservatism is, I don't even think really exists.
Right.
It's so confused and so conflated. But that's what you get when you get individualistic roots. Before we get out of here, man, bring up that other article about the general. Just so people can see this, if anyone's stuck around this long. This was a really interesting article. I did cover this briefly on All Minus One. I cannot confirm this either. It is like very much buried as far as mainstream media. There's no coverage. Although this was on a small news station, the what is it, the WVW news or whatever. But Lieutenant General McInerney, I don't even know how to put that together, but McInerney reports U.S. Special Forces attacked CIA server farm in Germany and server seizure operation. 5 soldiers killed, server secured. Of course, if this is SF, that's from 4 days ago, by the way. There's no way this is going to be able to be confirmed, but he did say this publicly on a stream, on a small news station. So either he is crazy or that's real. And what they're saying is they just sent special forces in, or some sort of black ops, to take out CIA. And that's scary. That means that's actual real civil war. That's real government.
That's some real shit.
Yeah. So I don't know, dude. It's 9:01. So you ready to get off here?
Yeah, I think that's all we're gonna get out tonight.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you all watching. If you're watching over in D Live, we have the links below, the subscribe star. If you want to donate, of course, you can always donate through diamonds and whatever D Live's crypto is. If you're watching on YouTube, comment, do whatever. I don't think we're big enough to get super chats yet. Maybe I can figure that out, or Tank can figure that out. But we will answer chats either way. If you guys comment, we'll talk to you. There is an entropy that is linked over on D Live right now. And you can follow us on Minds. Tank's in charge of all of that though. So, whatever he posts is not necessarily my opinion. Um, you can follow me over on All Minus One on YouTube. I do have other outlets in case YouTube somehow censors me, but not really keeping up on that. So but I am on like Library and BitChute and other stuff like that, but I just haven't updated. I thought I had automated updates, but it just didn't work. But either way, that is the show, folks. It is whatever it is. We are here every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. And I thank you all for watching. And this has been the ends justify the memes. And remember, the ends always justify those memes. Tank, hit that outro.
I'm talking about all the way to the top, yeah. Unjustifiably in a position that I'd rather not be in, but the cream will rise